A very warm welcome from the MARG Change Leader Forum. We are on episode 4 of our Spotlight series. Spotlight, the series for the practitioners and by the practitioners. They share their experiences meant to benefit our whole group of change practitioners. Today we have Astha Shukla talking to us about culture change. Astha, with her 13 years experience in transformation and change management, is well poised to talk to us about this topic. Coming from functional experience of HR, her experience has been in helping organizations navigate complex changes, and nowadays she has become quite a specialist in organization change management. So Astha, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to speaking on something which I'm doing from last 13 years. Finally, I can tell my opinions.
Thank you. And today we talk about culture change. Now, before starting off the conversation and for the purpose of this conversation, it would be good for you to define culture, because I have always found this to be quite a fuzzy area.
Indeed, it's a fuzzy area. It's intangible yet invincible. You cannot just disregard culture if you are in a very corporate setup, if you're not in an informal setup. Culture is something you have to keep in your mind. It's a subconscious bias. It happens with everyone. We are grown up with a culture. Since the time we are born, the culture is a part of our life. So considering culture is very important, I think. We do often get very focused groups. We do get focused on very tangible, the facts and figures and everything. And we often actually forget about culture. And I really want to make a remark here, because since culture is in a background, it's a subconscious bias. When a change management is successful, it is because of culture. But we only get to know when it's failing. So I think that's a point I really want to, take along in my projects. First, I understand people. We do stakeholder assessment, but it's very, a work-focused group. Really get into region-wise. We have clients who are in different regions and who are working culture is in a very different. Although we are part of one organization, but it's different. It is different. So that's why I think culture is the point which we should start focusing on now.
I think that's a very good point which you mentioned, that when it fails you realize it was that pinpointed to. But yeah, we do not make a conscious attempt to make sure that we have the right culture before we start the change. So I think that's very important, and it is no longer a given. With so many things happening, it's no longer obviously a given scenario. We sometimes say what leaders do is culture, how people experience the organization is culture. Now, why do we need to what problem does it solve? Why do we need to revisit it? Why do we need to change it?
So, Sudeshna, I think there are multi-factors in that, why we need to revisit. Sometimes, like now we are seeing that shift. The Gen Zs are into the corporates. Mm-hmm. It's a change. It's a massive culture change. We really need to, gel them around us. Otherwise, either we'll be divided into two parts, we'll not be able to work together. It's one of the factors, I think, right now. Second, I could see the market adaptations. It's really important. Like, if we have to understand the market, then the culture is one factor. If you see some 10, 20 years before, it's for when we were more hierarchical organizations. Those organizations are also changing their culture and moving to more horizontal and lateral working cultures. So, as I say, culture is not that important in the very conscious state of mind, but we really work on it. We together work on it. Previously, when not Gen Zs, but previous, for us, when we entered the corporate, there were a mix of people. There was some set of people who would like to be addressed as sirs, madam, in a very hierarchical way. But when we entered, then it came a shift. We started calling with our first names. That's a culture. I'm really taking some very small points because that really matters.
All things matter, right? Yeah.
Yes. there's a Hofstede's model on regional culture, right? So there are different models in which different type of culture aspects are being taken. There's a competitive value framework in which we are focusing only on the market, the internal scenarios and everything. The Hofstede's model is on the bigger side, the broadcasted side of the culture of the, the nation is also. We work with some South Asian client. They have a different way of asking their names. You have to address them in a certain way. You have to keep it in mind. Otherwise, that's going to hit the culture.
Yes.
Work with the Middle East clients. They have a different way of, talking, actions. So I think culture you need to revisit every time, because right up from the dressing for a corporate or a formal scenario to talking and addressing to your clients or any other, I think it's in informal areas. If you go for a vacation, then also you need to know the culture.
So
I think that's the point we really revisit it.
So I think you kind of put the scenarios in a very good way, So in a working context, it is the country, it is the market, it is the company itself, Sometimes maybe the function. Do you work on scenarios of only culture change, or do you work culture as a subset of all the other changes which you are doing?
To say practically, Sudeshna, we work on a very different mode of models which we have for change management. We use digital change, we use MARG, we have EDGAR model. So from that, we have EDGAR model, we use that. But as I said, it's a subconscious bias. When we talk to people, when we enter into the organization, when we talk to people, when we do change impact assessments, when we do stakeholder management, then we realize, okay, this group is different. So the change is also, I think, measured on 3 different scales, which one is an organizational level. The culture is at organizational level. Then when you move into the organization, when you start speaking to the focus groups, the culture comes in a very different way at a department or a team level. How one team is very cohesive, they are working in a cohesion. One team is actually in an autonomy state. One team, they are working in a very individualized roles typically, and that's at a department or team level. Then when you go further down and you do one-on-one assessments of the people, then comes the individual change. Some people still like to be addressed in work in a certain way. They have a very different way of working. Some people have a different way. They like to talk over a coffee. So when I say the measuring culture is also a 3-step process.
Absolutely. And usually, like as you said, it is subconscious, right? So what kind of blind spots do you see people having usually?
Okay, so if I say the blind spot, when I enter and I try to assess everything, the first, the blind spot which you encounter is homogeneity in culture. You're not going deep down again the organizational level culture. You're not deep downing and taking the culture of an individual team or an individual level. So considering, okay, this is a proper MNC, MNC, hence the culture would remain same across the organizations. Homogeneity of a culture is what I think is a big blind spot. Then I think if you say it's exactly the subconscious culture, the subculture of a culture in organization. There are those also underlying areas which we really actually forget, we neglect.
True.
So ignoring that is also a blind spot. Then obviously at individual level, people often don't speak up. They really don't like to speak up because you're not addressing. You don't get them to ask, no, okay, how you would express or how you would like to express. So neglecting that, the major areas I think is a blind spot which we forget.
True. And I think that's people are, all of us are different in our own ways. And when you work so deep, especially during a change, all those things happen. And I'm just trying to understand, this dynamic which you're speaking, that when with a proper HR transformation or a system change or something with which it is coming, then it might kind of give a different altogether. It come out as something which is too big to handle, right?
I'll just take up an example of one of my stint in the corporate sector. It was in a domestic client in India itself. There were two different BUs. One was in a west region and one was in the east region. And first we visited the west region and we prepared our scripts and the formal questionnaires, the surveys in a particular way, considering that's the main host and the corporate office, the head office of that particular organization. We prepared everything in that way. But when we moved into the east region, after dealing with the west region, we really need to do a complete shift of the things.
I didn't apply that.
Although we are seeing at India, we have a very homogeneity.
Yeah. Again, they're taking that mistake of you making it homogeneous.
Homogeneity is the major blind spot which we consider.
So true. So, how do you measure then shifts? Like in the sense that these mindsets or these critical behaviors are kind of it comes out in the culture changes. Then, like, how do you measure that they are shifting?
The shifts is basically when I say the critical mindset and the typical, we actually don't articulate them well. We don't do that. I'm saying in that terms because if we have to do it, I think the first of all, the phases of the overall change models, it's gonna be the first part of articulating those critical mindsets. So measuring those shifts can be, going back to their deep down values. Are they aligned to their vision? Are they aligned to their vision statements, their mission statements? How they are articulating their visions and mission statements? What's the way of their telling? Like,
yes,
it can be a statement, but how they are articulating it. So I think measuring at that level would be helpful. If we say that we have to actually measure those, and if you have to do quantitatively, you have surveys, you have, NPS models, different ways of, but for and foremost, you have to align their mindset to their mission and vision statement so that you can go further in that way. Some people are very strict to what's in the words. Some people articulate themselves in a certain way. So that's why I think measuring that in their particular terms is very necessary.
When you are having a change, say you're doing an HR transformation and you're doing a particular, say, process change or a system change, and that means depending upon the change, what culture will support that change. If we have that very clear in our mind, then we would know behaviors or that mindset to look out for.
Just a quoting example. For example, it's a process change.
Yes.
We are implementing, say, one of the technology in the system. Leadership has a view that, this is going to reduce time, this is going to improve the efficiency, this is going to help me with the more, performance-oriented. Rather than, doing a time-wise job or daily job, people will be more focused on doing some potential good work, or say strategic work, not a very operational job.
Yeah.
But that's a leadership area. When you move down, they might think, why it is happening? I'm doing my job well. I'm doing my operational job well. I'm also doing strategic initiatives. I'm doing some projects and everything. And then comes a gap. So we need to ask them, if this technology comes or if this process change comes, how you articulate this as a change. What it's going to help you. We are giving these functionalities. How, I think, in your terms, how it's going to help you. Leadership has set a code. They have to, this is going to reduce me this much of budget. This is going to reduce me this much of employee effort. This is going to reduce me. The market application is happening on this particular tool. Everyone is shifting, so we are also shifting. But then when you come to the department level, the three skills of measuring the change culture. So then at department level, you have to understand how they perceive this. Shifting from a very operational day-to-day job, which might be in a system. It's not necessarily going to be very manual as well. This is a system shift altogether. So I think resistance to change is a one business problem which we can solve with culture.
And that kind of says so many things, right? That That, as you said, it is not articulated well, and hence keep guessing, or you are just kind of trying to fix things. So most of the time when it is to the change, or very specific to that particular change, we are very adept to do it. But that, as you said, the things which we are not able to pinpoint, it boils down to these things which we have not articulated well, or we don't know what to look at. Why do you think we don't spend that much time on this? I mean, it's not that it is not known, right? And I think as consultants or as leaders, they are pretty much aware that, this is the culture will play a role. But when we do the work, somehow we don't spend so much time on it.
I think the main reason which I quoted in my very first statement, that is a subconscious bias, and we don't realize until it's failing.
Okay, so long it's going, it's fine, kind
of. So
long
it's going, people think, okay, we have set up a culture. We really don't need to. The conversation starts from there. We don't need to revisit it. We have set up a culture. Everyone is happy. Whatever we'll bring in as an update or a shift in the market or internal, unless it's a performance issue, people think it's well, it's well articulated. The culture is well articulated. So the problem statement start from the point that we don't realize until it's failing.
Oh, absolutely. So here, I think the dependency on human is kind of undeniable. Yet we don't always see change management being well pronounced, or it is not very visible as to, you're doing the change management. Why do you think it is that way?
It's very much people dependent. But when I say, when we are doing a project, say change, so then I think comes the point of a leadership, engagement or involvement. If a leader is, assessing first the culture, what currently is the culture of organization, and then they try to, bring a change. So ideally, he has done the basic of homework. The leadership has done the homework. It could be not just a, macro management, it could be micro management at a department level or a team level. They have done that homework. And then when, when it comes, so ideally, Sudeshna, the corporate culture is hierarchy. The basic concept is hierarchy. And we think we have set up a culture. People are, good in that. They are doing good. Their performances are good. Their jobs are being done well. And hence, whatever, different changes or updations or something we are going to bring for them, it's a benefit of the employee, whatever change they do. They really don't do it thinking, okay, someone will suffer. They always bring the change thinking that's going to be positive.
Business reason, yeah.
Business reason. Typically business reason. But then comes the people perspective of it.
Yeah.
Whether they think it's useful or a, positive change for me or not. Fear of losing job. Fear of losing the, when I work in a certain area, I have an expertise on that. Things are on my tips, People ask me, and somehow we actually have this notion that if I'm doing certain thing in a way, people will come and ask me only because I have that proficiency.
Yes.
We don't think we have different potentials. We consider as a experience, proficiency as a potential. Mm-hmm. That's the thing where people part comes. That's the thing where you really need to work, that you are a human. These things can be done through a system that, check with a single click and everything. You have a potential to do something else. Probably you have potential to change the culture of your team with working in a certain behavioral aspect. So I think that's the part where people dependency is a lot. There are behavioral patterns. There are, communication patterns. This all is considered as a people part. We forget it because for the business reasons we are thinking everyone is doing that, why not us? But everyone is also facing those same issues. The people part cannot be neglected because ultimately when we bring a change, it's people only who tell you what's the problem at a certain level. No leadership can guess what exactly is happening at an operational level.
Right.
Neither of the system can tell. No system can tell what's a problem right now they are facing with an operation. It's people only.
So like now what you're saying, like in the AI era, it becomes even more kind of difficult if we do not address the behaviors which will go and accept an AI, meaning, that way it'll become all the more difficult if we do not at the onset identify that these should be the behaviors we should be moving to, or these existing behaviors or mindset will impede, meaning, this thing from impede us from reaching that goal.
So as I said, AI, the first impression everyone was having for AI, people will lose job because of AI.
Yeah.
I will lose what I'm doing. But the point is, you have to use AI to give more potential. You have to use AI for you, giving yourself a more potential of reading, whatever. See, the first reaction comes if we have to do anything. I'll do this as a consulting, the ChatGPT. We'll do as a we'll do a ChatGPT for this one. But people are using the exact thing from that chat. They are not enhancing their knowledge from that. You can use that for enhancing your knowledge. You might have certain tricks, tips, tricks with yourself, but it's much more. Previously, it was difficult because you have to refer to the books, you have to refer to the research articles for preparing something. But it's easing your job, not taking up your job. Whatever you are doing, you have to still do it. But the people part comes when people think, okay, no, this is the only thing I can do.
Yeah.
Making them think, no, this is not the only thing you can do. You can do much more things. Is a role of culture dependency.
So now, to wrap up, I would like to ask you, how do you think would be the role of change management in an effective culture change?
Till now, we were talking about culture and change management. Now we have to talk about change management role in culture. So as I said, we have to do a very cohesive, the assessment, the culture assessment. There are many frameworks. We have different models which are, prevalent. I think as a practitioners, we should start doing those assessments before going into the phases of your, workshops, the change impact assessment, the stakeholder assessments and everything. We should previously start off with doing the culture assessments. It should be part of our models. Because we do culture while we're doing the other stuff, the change management. When we are completing the 5 cycles, we are assessing in culture between. But I think first and foremost, we should assess culture.
The organization that are very important.
We will think it's not gonna be very, business will come back to you. If it is needed, we have a certain pattern. People are working in that particular pattern. So, but as I said, we have to make them realize it might fail. And not just because of the system technicalities or the different phases, the UATs, the SITs, or in case it's a process change, the system setup or everything. But it might fail just because people aren't accepting it.
So you need to do something on that first before you embark on the whole journey.
Yes.
And most of the time that happens at the end. And that's why when everything falls.
When you assess the culture, then you have multiple things to amend that. You can do trainings, you can do focus group interviews, you can do discussions, and many things. You can have, quick coffee overs, you can have design sessions, multiple things, and people do enjoy it. I tell you, people do enjoy them. When they think they are part of that change, that accountability comes in them and they actually realize, okay, I'm part of this, I'm responsible, that they shouldn't fail. Then your change management.
You're passing. Thank you so much, Astha, for this conversation. And I think I cannot at least myself undermine the importance of culture anymore. Because it's underlined, it's not like culture by itself, but in whichever change you do, if we do need to be mindful of that background, as you said rightly, and that plays such an important role, and we should be very mindful also of our blind spot of not considering it homogeneous, or making it very sure as to which mindsets, which behaviors are required for that particular change to be successful. So thank you very much for this conversation. It was really great for us.
All pleasure is mine. Sorry, I'm not going to give that.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for watching the MARG Change Leader Forum. And we shall be back with more on Spotlight, because this gives us a great perspective to do our changes even better. Thank you so much.